Naofumi is a disgusting weakling who gets betrayed by a hot Cheeto girl. Now fueled with rage, he awakens a skill which makes him the ultimate clap boss of another world. It all begins with Naofumi narrating how he became the king of his room when his little brother went astray, and he helped him bring back to the path of light. As a result of this, Naofumi was allowed to stay home and play Clash of Clans all day and night. With no care for anything else in the world, Naofumi became the resident of evil, as all he did was waste away his life, playing games and reading light novels. However, everything changed one day when he went to a library and picked up a book. Although the book looked as dusty and musty as your girlfriend's hoo-ha, Naofumi remembered how Anna Skull once said, "Never judge a book by its cover," and so he started reading. The first pages of the book said how the world will soon be struck by the waves of apocalyptic catastrophe, and only 4 great heroes from another world can save the world from becoming like the Twin Towers. As Naofumi continues on, he learns how each of these legendary heroes will wield a sword, spear, bow, and shield. Upon reading the word shield, Naofumi scoffs and states how the hero wielding a shield would probably be a sissy still sucking on his mother's watermelons, since a shield does not protect anyone but the one behind it. After getting bored by the book, Naofumi hopes to bust a fat one on the description of the heroines when suddenly the book glows and Naofumi finds himself in another world. This upsets him greatly as Naofumi thinks about how most of his life he spent avoiding Truck-kun just so he would not get transported to another world, and will be then made to rescue losers. To his greatest misfortune, not only does he have a shield on his arm, but a group of crybabies beg him and 3 other boys like him to save their world before it becomes Uranus. Surprisingly, the 3 other boys tell the helpless losers how they refuse to help them, as the moment they save their world, they will be thrown out or treated as enemies or outsiders. This makes Naofumi cringe as he thinks about how they should have been the ones wielding a shield, since they're just terrified losers. Upon realizing the vice of man, the nobles beseech the heroes to just have an audience with their king, Melromark, who will set a sure reward for their valiance. The heroes agree to the proposition, and Naofumi soon finds himself in the presence of the king. Since nobody has their resumes and cover letters with them, Melromark asks the heroes to introduce themselves. The hero holding the sword introduces himself as Ren and states that he will use the sword in his hand to protect the realm, and then use the sword between his legs to demolish twinks. The spear hero reveals himself as Motoyasu, while the boy wielding the bow calls himself Itsuki. When the king ignores Naofumi, the boy becomes rather upset and gives an unasked intro. Melromark ignores him again and reveals how the world is at the brink of destruction, since someone's fat mom let out such deadly farts that it became deadly waves which are now hell-bent on ruining the entire kingdom. The first wave struck the realm with such a terrifying fire that the knights of the kingdom were unable to do anything but hope for the heroes to save them from the second wave. After hearing the entire tale, Ren, Motoyasu, and Itsuki tell the king they will not move their butts for free. Hearing this, a noble present on the side assures the greedy boys they will have more gold than the Lannisters, since Melromark always pays his debts. Once that is dealt with, the heroes open their status windows and find out they are on level 1. On that note, Melromark tells them to go work those bones until they are strong. Just when Naofumi suggests they form a party, a noble man informs them that they will all be giving their separate parties as they cannot work together. When asked why, the man reveals that their weapons have the personality of a strong, independent woman, and therefore they will face problems if they work together. That night when the boys are in their private quarters, they get to talking and realize they are from different timelines, but all of them hail from Japan. During the conversation, the 3 boys pick on Naofumi, informing him how usually in games, anyone who picks the shield is a certified loser. The next day, Melromark orders a bunch of NPCs to join any hero they like. To Naofumi's dismay, all the cuties and the hunks join the 3 heroes while he is left with dust and flies. When he asks the king if everyone in this world is intimidated by the anaconda sleeping between his legs, Melromark reveals that everyone believes he is useless. As Naofumi grunts and complains, a cute girl agrees to pair up with him. Once they set out, the girl introduces herself as Main, and in response, Naofumi introduces himself and reveals he is an empath, which means he knows that she picked him because she wants to give him a mouth hug. Ignoring Naofumi, Main takes him to a weapon shop where Naofumi tries to take a sword but gets tased instead. Turns out, as the shield hero, Naofumi cannot wield anything but a shield. Realizing he is built like a pathetic little girl, Naofumi decides to embrace it and plays dress-up in the weapon shop. Once he finally gets his dress right, Naofumi slays some low-tier monsters and calls it a day. Later that night, Main begs Naofumi to drink with her, but Naofumi pulls a Chad for the first time and turns her down. With that, he walks inside his room, ready to sleep off the day. Morning comes and Naofumi finds all his possessions gone. Assuming he has been robbed, Naofumi frantically goes to alert Main when he finds himself surrounded by knights who bring him to the king. With all the heroes already present on the site, Main reveals how Naofumi tried to do something which rhymes with grape. As Naofumi is subjected to all kinds of insults, he observes Main and Motoyasu's body language and realizes that both of them plotted against him. He then watches the people around him and realizes how from the get-go he was treated poorly since he was the weak one. This infuriates Naofumi so much that he asks the king to just throw him to a cell, but no remark reveals that he has publicized his crime, and that would be his punishment, as he will not be able to lead a decent life anymore. Understanding the situation, Naofumi steps out of the castle, bitter and angry. Now with vengeance as his only friend, Naofumi enslaves some low-tier monsters and heads to the next trader's shop to get money in exchange for monster hides. However, when the trader tries to give him a bad deal because of his besmirched name, Naofumi threatens him with his monsters, which terrifies the trader so much that he apologizes and gives Naofumi a fair price. Later, Naofumi comes across some medicinal herbs and decides to absorb it. Upon consuming the plant, Naofumi realizes he can upgrade his shield to a leaf shield. He also learns that not only has he ranked up but also gained a new skill which helps him improve the quality of the materials collected by him. After making some money from his high-quality materials, Naofumi is approached by a strange man who tells him to follow him. Despite having trust issues, Naofumi decides to follow the tiny man because it's not like his life can get any worse. The man leads Naofumi to a tavern and reveals that he deals in slaves, offering them for purchase. Realizing this is essentially a real-world version of the dark web, Naofumi asks why he would ever need slaves, and so the man named Bellucas reveals that a slave can never lie or betray a master. Despite knowing he should never trust a man named Bellucas, Naofumi asks him to show the products. For starters, Bellucas shows Naofumi his best, most expensive slave, knowing a broke loser like him can never afford it. Naofumi admits that he has no money and then asks for a cheap slave, and so Bellucas brings him to a cage where a female demi-human tries to cover her frail body. Bellucas reveals that the girl's previous master was Christian Grey, while the half-human liked it vanilla. This unfortunately broke the girl's mind. Thinking that the demi-human would be experienced and not use teeth like other girls, Naofumi instantly buys her and learns that the girl is called Raphtalia. Later, Naofumi takes her to the weapon shop. Since the owner believes Naofumi does not have the balls to sleep with anyone, he deals with Naofumi much more kindly than everyone around him. After buying Raphtalia some cheap weapons, Naofumi gruffly tells her that he expects her to fight monsters for her. The timid girl, being weak and powerless because of the slave contracts, agrees and follows Naofumi to a restaurant, which does not allow demi-humans in. The people present in the establishment break into whispers as they see the hailed scum and a demi-girl by his side. However, Naofumi ignores everyone and orders food for himself and Raphtalia. Upon looking at the food, Raphtalia's eyes begin to sparkle. After eating like a fat mukbang creator, Raphtalia is worked to the bone by Naofumi, who makes her fight monsters. Once she has killed a bunch of low-tier monsters, Naofumi gives Raphtalia some medicine which makes her gag. Like a boomer, Naofumi tells Raphtalia that all good medicine tastes bad. That night, Raphtalia dreams about the day her mother and father were yoinked by a monster. As she wakes up screaming, Naofumi quickly hugs her before he is accused by PETA for another abuse charge. The next day, Naofumi arrives at the local herbalist's shop and asks him about what is in demand. The herbalist reveals that ever since their country was hit by the first wave, they have had a shortage of medicine. Understanding what needs to be done, Naofumi asks the man if he can spare some unused tools. After bonding with Raphtalia over the days, Naofumi asks her to eliminate a rabbit, but Raphtalia becomes scared and states she cannot withstand blood. Suddenly, her slave contract gains power and hurts her over disobeying orders. Naofumi tells Raphtalia that he is only good at defense, so if she does not fight, then she will be discarded. Hearing this, Raphtalia does what needs to be done. The next day, both Raphtalia and Naofumi skip town and arrive at the town of Loot, where he learns that fetching crystals is the most lucrative job as the mines are filled with monsters. Without wasting another moment, they head down to the mines where Raphtalia encounters a similar monster that eliminated her parents. Overcome by fear, Raphtalia freezes in one spot while Naofumi tries to tackle the monster, but is unable to do so. Not wanting his slave to die in his stead, Naofumi tells Raphtalia that if she cannot eliminate the monster, she might as well run while he can still stop the monster. Remembering how her parents died protecting her, Raphtalia gains courage and slays the monster while Naofumi protects her. After traveling with Raphtalia for more than a week now, Naofumi recounts how he has unlocked a large number of shields by feeding his weapon various monster parts, while Raphtalia has grown better in attacking the enemies. However, even with shields and a fighter's slave, Naofumi, being an airhead, became injured while fighting a porcupine-type monster. This makes him realize that it's now time to head back to the blacksmith. While talking to Edhart, the blacksmith, Naofumi remains oblivious to Raphtalia's physical growth. Instead, he assumes that everyone commenting on her appearance is secretly a lolicon, much to Raphtalia's annoyance. After browsing Edhart's stock and finding nothing suitable, they order a custom armor commission. When they return to the shop after dinner, Naofumi continues treating Raphtalia like a little human, again frustrating her. Once Naofumi equips the new barbarian armor, he remarks that it's difficult to prepare for the next wave since he doesn't know when or where it will strike. Edhart then informs him that the dragon Harglass in the capital informs the heroes when the next wave is about to come, and when the hour is near it, also transports the heroes and their companions directly to the location. Frustrated that this critical information wasn't provided earlier, Naofumi heads to the tower to get updated on the time. However, inside he is confronted by Motoyasu, Ren, and Itsuki, along with their respective parties. Motoyasu immediately begins flirting with Raphtalia, while slyly making malicious remarks about Naofumi. Just before the catastrophic wave strikes, Raphtalia expresses her deep gratitude to Naofumi, swearing her unwavering loyalty. As the final grain of sand falls in the Dragon Harglass, the four heroes and their parties are transported just outside Loot Village. Seeing that none of the villagers have evacuated and the knights are too far to provide timely help, Naofumi quickly realizes that this is all Beyonce's fault. Rather than joining the other heroes to fight the wave bosses, Naofumi and Raphtalia stay behind to defend the village from the horde of undead and monster bees summoned into battle. They split up, and while Raphtalia helps evacuate the villagers, Naofumi diverts as many monsters as possible away from the town. As the undead army charges towards the guard tower, Naofumi, out of options, burns and topples the tower onto the horde. Seeing this, several villagers in Raphtalia return to help him fight off the remaining monsters. Reinforcements arrive in the form of Melromark's knights, but they begin indiscriminately firebombing the area to wipe out the monsters, showing little concern for Naofumi or the villagers caught in the crossfire. Enraged by their recklessness and disrespect toward Naofumi, Raphtalia attempts to strike down the cowardly captain, who hides behind his loyal vice-captain. Naofumi points out the greater danger at hand and pleads for them to fight alongside him, but the captain and the higher-ranking knights refuse, choosing instead to flee and join the other heroes. However, the vice-captain, a younger officer, and several lower-ranking knights decide to stay and form an alliance with Naofumi to help fend off the monsters. In the end, the other three heroes manage to defeat the second wave. Later on, the other three heroes prepare to collect their rewards while Naofumi is met with sincere gratitude from the villagers for his efforts in defending them. Raphtalia, on the other hand, asks if they were at least able to prevent any new orphans from being made, recalling her own painful experience of being orphaned in the first wave. Naofumi gently assures her that they did, and as she breaks down in tears over being a loser orphan, he softly pats her head, offering silent comfort. Following the events of the second wave, the Kingdom of Melromark holds a grand celebration at the royal castle in honor of the hero's victory. Naofumi, on the other hand, gets ignored by everyone the same way your family ignores you during Thanksgiving. As Naofumi surveys the room, he notices the knight captain boasting to a group of young noblewomen about defeating a huge monster, forgetting how he pissed his pants when the threat was in front of him. On the other hand, Motoyasu is surrounded by noblewomen, many of whom ask about his love life. The conversation is quickly interrupted by a jealous Mane, who steps in just as Motoyasu spots Raphtalia walking through the crowd. Motoyasu tries to approach her, but Mane blocks him and discreetly whispers something into his ear. Raphtalia, on her part, tries to get Naofumi to eat some of the feast, but he declines, claiming he's not hungry. Turns out, his taste buds have been dulled, which is why he doesn't see much point in enjoying the food. Instead, he remains focused on reading the help menu and realizes he has the ability to teleport now. Raphtalia reappears and feeds Naofumi with her own hands, which ticks off Motoyasu. In his envy, he asks Naofumi to duel with him, stating that it's wrong of him to keep a slave. As Motoyasu demands Raphtalia's freedom, Naofumi reminds him that slavery is legal in this country. However, Motoyasu retorts that since they're from another world, this type of behavior is beneath a hero. A disgusted and definitely not biased king appears and demands Naofumi to participate in the duel, or he will feed his small family jewels to the crows. When Raphtalia attempts to explain that she follows Naofumi of her own free will, the soldiers of Melromarc quickly seize her away before she can speak further. The king dismisses her claims, reasoning that Raphtalia's defense of Naofumi is merely a result of the slave crest's control over her actions. Left with no choice, Naofumi reluctantly agrees to the duel, but firmly declares that Raphtalia must be returned to him when he wins. This prompts Maine to mock him, reminding everyone that the shield hero is unable to attack, which sends the sneering crowd into laughter. As Naofumi hears the crowd chanting for Motoyasu, he is painfully reminded of his limitations, as he can't wield any weapons other than his shield. Although at a disadvantage due to his weapon, Naofumi quickly proves his mettle by effortlessly blocking Motoyasu's strikes using his light metal shield. He confidently declares that Motoyasu lost the moment he failed to penetrate his shield. The spear hero counters back, but ultimately, Naofumi overwhelms him. This doesn't sit right with Maine, who uses her magic to help Motoyasu overpower Naofumi. As the king declares Motoyasu the victor, Maine gleefully taunts Naofumi, reminding him that now he will be left to fight alone once again. The king praises the spear hero and reveals how his daughter chose the right man for herself. As Naofumi stands in the center of the arena, as his eyes widen in shock upon realizing that his fate was doomed from the start, Princess Malti, disguised as adventurer Maine, never had any intention of becoming Naofumi's true companion. She had joined him solely to set him up to fail. Taking advantage of his innocence and goodwill, she used her time with him to procure her own armor and then sabotage him financially. Once she was successful, she made sure to come up with an emotional story that would make Naofumi look more evil than Diddy the Diddler, and once everyone believed her, she was able to make her crush the good guy while he was scorned. Naofumi also realizes that the king knew about how his daughter was a conniving little parasite, and that's why he never listened to his story. A dark mist begins to seep from Naofumi's shield, mirroring the deepening storm of his emotions. As the shield hero sinks further into despair and anger, his mind churns over the overwhelming unfairness of his situation. The betrayal, lies, and the injustice weigh heavily on him, threatening to consume him entirely. Just when Naofumi thinks his suffering couldn't grow worse, one of the king's ministers coldly declares that Motoyasu has successfully freed Raphtalia. A dark mist oozes out of Naofumi as he sees Raphtalia leave him behind. But turns out, Naofumi is under an hallucination, as in reality, Raphtalia fights for Naofumi's innocence. Soon, Ren and Itsuki join the conversation, telling Motoyasu how Naofumi is the true victor as he got help from Malti. Feeling like a cornered little rat, Malti angrily says nobody in the audience saw her aid Motoyasu, which prompts the other two heroes to state how nobody has the balls to retaliate against the princess. In the meantime, Raphtalia goes to console Naofumi, who is still under the shield's dark influence. As Raphtalia continues to tell Naofumi how he saved her, the shield hero looks up and finally sees Raphtalia as a grown woman. As the beanstalk in his pants grows, Naofumi breaks the dark influence and falls asleep in Raphtalia's lap. In a castle, a woman is being dressed by her servants while receiving a briefing from a spy. The spy informs her that the king's recent actions are likely due to Malti's influence. However, the woman is pleased to hear that Naofumi has found a slave to aid him. With the matter of the shield hero settled for now, she shifts her focus to keeping Melromarc's neighboring nations at bay, as Melromarc's monopoly over the four heroes is causing unrest. She instructs her spy to continue monitoring the capital. Meanwhile, back in Melromarc Castle, the heroes have gathered to receive their rewards for their contributions during the wave. In front of a crowd of nobles and adventurers, Motoyasu is awarded 4,000 silvers, while Itsuki and Ren each receive 3,800 silvers. Naofumi, as promised, is given a basic payment of 500 silver. However, the king abruptly announces that he is retracting Naofumi's payment to cover the cost of freeing his slave. Ren and Itsuki immediately protest, pointing out that the king is being completely unfair. Not only is he going back on his word, but they also argue that the duel was rigged from the start, and Naofumi only lost due to Meiti's interference. With that, they also remind the court that the removal of Raphtalia's slave crest was forced by the king and princess, when all this time, Raphtalia was zesty and wanted to be Naofumi's slave. Malty steps in to defend her father and justifies rescinding Naofumi's reward. However, Ren and Itsuki push back, highlighting that Malty herself interfered by casting a spell during the duel, ensuring Naofumi's loss. Ren further adds that Naofumi has upheld his side of the agreement by fighting in the wave, and the only reason there were minimal casualties was because he defended the village while the knights chickened out. With no valid counter-arguments, the king begrudgingly agrees to give Naofumi his original 500 silver allowance. Naofumi is about to commit crimes worse than the artist of Germany when Raphtalia tells him to keep calm, it's her birthday. The pair returns to Belukis, who restores Raphtalia's slave crest at her request, as it symbolizes the trust between them. Raphtalia also hopes Naofumi will notice her femininity, but her efforts fall flat as she's flat as a pancake. By absorbing the ink used in the slave crest ritual, Naofumi unlocks the slave series for the shield, granting his slaves a stat boost as they level up. Naofumi then notices a monster egg raffle. Belukis informs him that for 100 silvers, he can purchase a random egg, guaranteed to at least hatch a Filolio, which could be used for travel or sold back as an adult for double the price. In the end, Naofumi decides to buy one egg. Later, Naofumi visits the medicinal shop owner, who offers him an intermediate potion crafting book as thanks for protecting his relatives during the wave. Similarly, the magic shop owner gives him a book on magic, revealing that Naofumi has an affinity for healing and support magic, while Raphtalia can use dark and light magic. She also suggests that Raphtalia learn illusion magic. Later on, while reading the books, Naofumi realizes that although his shield translates spoken language, he still can't read the local script and will need to learn it. Raphtalia insists on learning both the magic and language with him, as they have a month before the next wave. The next morning, the egg hatches, revealing a Filolio. The chick quickly becomes mature and Naofumi names it Philo. While Naofumi admires his new companion, Motoyasu's party and some royal knights arrive with a royal decree, naming Motoyasu as the village's new lord. His first act is to impose a tax of 50 silvers to enter and leave the village, which would quickly bankrupt the locals. Naofumi objects and tells Malty and Motoyasu that their popularity will crash like the stock market if they keep this up. Infuriated by the opposition, Matlu orders the knight to sack the village when a group of veiled girls arrive with a message for her, prompting her to change the decree. She declares that Naofumi and Motoyasu will compete in a dragon race to determine control of the village. Naofumi wants to avoid the race, but Philo, being a big dumb chicken, challenges Motoyasu's dragon. While preparing for the race, Motoyasu mocks Naofumi's bird, only to be kicked in the crotch by Philo, much to Naofumi's amusement. The race consists of 3 laps around the village. Philo's incredible speed gives Naofumi an early lead, but Motoyasu's knights set magical traps around the course to slow Philo down. Despite the sabotage, Philo's strength and Naofumi's shield help them avoid the traps, and they win the race just in time. After the race, Philo transforms from a bird into a young girl with angel-like wings, surprising everyone. Malty tries to accuse Naofumi of cheating, but the group of masked girls reveal that it was actually Motoyasu's party who cheated. Defeated, Motoyasu's group leaves, and Naofumi is offered a reward. He declines money, preferring not to catch another allegation. Instead, Philo suggests a slightly damaged wagon, which she uses to give Naofumi and Raphtalia free rides. The next morning, they discover that the bird has been replaced by the little blonde girl with wings, who calls Naofumi master and demands food. Edhard is about to molest his food when Naofumi, Raphtalia, and a young blonde girl in a cloak walk into his shop. When the girl mentions she's hungry, Edhard offers her a bite of his foot-long subway. Suddenly, the girl transforms into Naofumi's Filolio and devours the entire sandwich in one big bite. Naofumi then explains that they took Philo back to Belukis. He informed them that Filolio flocks are typically led by a king or queen. These royals can disguise themselves as regular Philolials through shapeshifting. After that, the slave trader greedily drained all of Naofumi's money to fit Philo with a high-grade slave crest. After narrating the story, Naofumi asks Edhart to give him clothes that do not tear off once Philo transforms into a fat chicken. Edhart then reveals that he doesn't make such clothes and guides him to a dressmaker who does. The tailor, however, explains she'll need magic threads to make shape-changing clothes and directs them to the magic shop. The magic shop owner explains that she needs a new magic crystal for her spinning wheel to create magic thread, which may take time to get. To compensate, she offers Philo a free magic consultation and finds out she has an affinity with wind magic. With no other options, the group focuses on recouping their losses by using Philo to pull their carriage and sell merchandise from town to town. On the road, they meet a man frantically running along, explaining that his mother is sick and he needs to get home to deliver medicine. After making sure the man would pay, Naofumi has Philo run full speed to the man's house, where he uses his medicine and skill to cure the woman. They get paid in food before rejoining Raphtalia and the carriage. For the next few days, the group makes money by selling goods, medicines, and offering rides, earning a reputation. Hickwall, an accessory merchant, informs Naofumi that he's now known as a saintly healer, traveling with the god of domestic birds. While they discuss this, Raphtalia spots a group of thugs ahead. The leader of the thugs demands Naofumi to hand Hickwall to them and expresses desire to have some fun with Raphtalia first. Naofumi, Raphtalia, and Philo refuse to back down, but the thugs boast about having a class-upgraded bodyguard. Naofumi doesn't know what a class upgrade is and regrets not being able to use magic. Raphtalia turns invisible and attacks, while Philo summons a tornado, taking down the thugs. After the fight, the bandits reveal that another merchant sold Hickwall out. They recognize Naofumi as the shield hero and laugh, knowing the guards would side with them over the nefarious hero. In response, Naofumi threatens to feed them to Philo. When they beg for their lives, Naofumi decides to rob the robbers. The bandits lead the group to their hideout and hand over all of their stolen goods. With the bandits dealt with, Naofumi demands extra payment from the merchant for the trouble. Impressed by Naofumi's capitalist tendencies, the merchant offers to teach him craftsmanship, and Naofumi learns how to refine precious metals, craft, and enchant gems. He also gains some magic knowledge. Naofumi is introduced to the merchant's contacts, who share rumors about the other heroes. Motoyasu ended famine in a village by planting a legendary crop. Ren has been hunting monsters and killed a dragon, but there's no reliable news about Itsuki. The merchant also gives Naofumi a recommendation letter to mine for ores and gemstones. Using the letter, Naofumi learns where the magic gem needed for Philo's clothes is located. Taking the Witch of the Magic Shop with them, Naofumi and the Cuddle Crew enter the shady cave where they're instantly struck by eerie voices, which whisper painful things to Naofumi and his friends. The magic shop owner warns them that monsters in the cave are mimicking their voices and reading their minds to sow distrust. She dispels the illusions, and Philo defeats the monsters with wind magic. As they continue, they encounter a gnu the size of a lion. After a tedious fight, Naofumi's girls manage to finish the gnu and then come across the crystal. With the crystals in hand, they return to the magic shop, where they use Philo's mana to create magic thread and complete her clothes. After receiving a tip from the merchant Hickwall, Naofumi and his team head to Lerno village to sell a large supply of herbicide that the villagers had urgently requested. Upon arriving, they find the village overrun by aggressive vines. Seeing the situation, Raphtalia asks the chief if he tried burning the vines. When the chief reveals he has tried everything, Naofumi states that he should try loving the vines so they can run away from him. The chief, however, grows worried and informs Naofumi how the adventurers are trying to solve the problem despite knowing the danger. Upon hearing this, Naofumi tells Philo to quickly fetch the adventurers before it's too late. Not a minute later, Philo returns with the men and reveals her ability to speak, which exposes Naofumi's identity as the saintly healer. After Naofumi cures the afflicted villagers, they beg him to finish what the adventurers started by destroying the bioplant for good. The chief of the village also informs Naofumi that it was Motoyasu who tried to solve the town's famine by planting a bioplant seed he acquired from an alchemist's lair. After hearing the backstory of the seed, Naofumi reprimands the villagers for not being more cautious. With that, he collects an advance payment before marching to deal with the vines that have anxious attachment. Raphtalia and Philo recklessly charge at the bioplants but end up getting in each other's way. with Raphtalia landing in an awkward position that makes Philo smirk in amusement. Realizing the herbicide would be most effective if applied through his shield's enhancement ability, Naofumi tanks the attacks from the monstrous plants with his superior defenses. After pouring the herbicide directly in the plant's core, Naofumi asks his girls to collect the seeds, but this only leads to the two of them fighting over who gets to do the task. Later, Naofumi feeds the seeds and dead plant matter to his legendary shield, which helps him unlock new shield abilities, allowing him to analyze and modify the plants. The next day, after experimenting with his new powers, Naofumi successfully alters the plants to prevent further mutations and tells the villagers that they no longer have to worry about the famine. Since the villagers no longer have gold, they hand Naofumi a bunch of fruits from the plant he grew. From there, Naofumi, seeking a quick profit, sells the modified seeds to Hickwall for a hefty sum. Once again, impressed by Naofumi's greediness, Hickwall gives him another job which involves delivering a parcel to an inn in a nearby hot spring town. Upon arriving and completing the delivery, Naofumi pockets some extra money and suggests they stay the night. After taking a bath in the hot spring, Raphtalia finds her man brushing Philo's hair and becomes jealous. She wonders if Naofumi is a lolicon, when suddenly she overhears some girls talking about a rare item called Latium, which can be used to create a love-enhancing accessory. Hearing this, Raphtalia decides to pursue it to win Naofumi's affection. She further learns that a bird called Gogoku collects Latium, so she sets off to find its nest. However, she soon discovers that Philo is heading to the same nest to get an egg for Naofumi, as this chicken girl knows that a way to a man's heart is either through his spot or through the stomach. A race breaks out between the girl when suddenly Philo falls off a cliff, and while trying to save her, Raphtalia falls as well. Just when they find themselves bonding over their silliness, they realize they are on top of a huge boar. After getting chased by the boar, the girls reach the nest, but before they can get what they want, the boar comes charging towards them, destroying the eggs and knocking the Latium ore far away. Realizing they cannot impress Naofumi out of his G-string now, the girls mercilessly slay the huge boar and head back to the town, where a few villagers beg them to hand over the boar for a hefty price. And knowing how Naofumi loves his coins, the girls agree. But instead of giving Naofumi the bag of gold, the girls get him a hammer which he can use for crafting gems. Pleased by the gift, Naofumi gives Raphtalia and Philo some headpats. But at night, Naofumi works on making presents for his girls while they sleep. The following morning, the group find themselves back on the road when they see a distraught elderly gilf and a young boy. Without missing a beat, the elderly woman advises Naofumi to not venture further down the road, as the town ahead is ridden with sick people. Naofumi assures the woman that he too is suffering from big PP energy, and that is why he will tend to the sickly. After arriving at the village, Naofumi is warmly greeted by the head doctor, who instantly recognizes him as the saintly healer. Once he cures everyone, the head doctor tells Naofumi they will sing ballads about him, but the shield hero states they will all die before that, as he only alleviated their symptoms, which will return again if the cause of the sickness is not rooted out. The village doctor then reveals the source of the plague is the toxic wind blowing down from the mountain. Turns out, at the mountain's summit lies the corpse of a dragon, slain about a month ago by Rand, who left the body to rot. However, everyone wanted to see a huge dead lizard, so the area quickly became popular. But soon enough, the dragon's decaying corpse began poisoning the air, which caused the plague to spread as fast as your mom's legs. In the end, the doctor reveals how the kingdom has done nothing to help their situation. Naofumi steps up and tells the doctor to just pay him the money he promised to the kingdom. With the deal set in stone, Naofumi and the gang head to the mountain, where they encounter some monsters. After taking care of them, the group witnesses the dead dragon turn into a zombie dragon. Enraged at the sight of the dragon, Philo immediately attacks. However, in her recklessness, she is swallowed whole by the beast. As Naofumi watches, Philo's light flash before his eyes. Something inside him snaps. This world has once again taken something precious from him. As images of Malti and the king flash before him, Naofumi becomes more consumed with rage and unlocks a dark power within his shield which burns everything in front of him. While he is blinded with hate, Naofumi hears a gentle voice from somewhere, reminding him how he is a gentleman with a foot-long sub in his pants. Upon being reminded how he is a Chad with a massive junk, Naofumi regains his composure and sees an injured Raphtalia next to him. As the dragon continues to attack, Naofumi finds himself divided between helping his chick with fluffy ears and saving the town. Suddenly, Philo bursts out of the dragon's stomach, slaying it simultaneously. Philo then reveals she devoured a magic crystal inside the dragon, which is what subdued the monster. After clearing the quest, Naofumi takes Raphtalia to the village where he signs her up for a treatment. Later, Philo presents Naofumi with a fragment of the magic crystal she found in the dragon's corpse. At first, Naofumi asks her if she is handing him a pooped-out crystal, but Philo insists it's a different one. After sniffing it, Naofumi feeds it to his shield and he unlocks a new ability. He also notices that the Raph shield isn't part of the upgrade tree, deepening his unease about relying on its power in the future. Not wanting to be labeled as useless as Sakura, Raphtalia fights some monsters beside Naofumi and Philo. Once they are done, Naofumi looks at Raphtalia's wounds and tells her they will return to the capital, where they will get an E-Girl's holy waters to cure her completely. All of a sudden, the gang notices a group of Philolials surrounding a girl. However, as they approach the weird tea party, the Philolials quickly run away. Philo sees the birds and tells Naofumi and Raphtalia how the Philolials look yummy. This prompts Naofumi to tell Philo that she would be a cannibal if she consumes one of her own. The girl notices Philo speaking and becomes excited as she loves big white chickens. After offering Philo some raw meat, the girl introduces herself as Melty. As Philo and Melty quickly bond together, Naofumi allows her to play with Melty while he takes care of a side quest with Raphtalia. Later that evening, Philo returns with Melty, who explains she got separated from her escort and needs a ride back to Castle Town. Hoping for a reward, Naofumi agrees to help, unaware that a spy is watching them through a window. The next day, Naofumi takes Melty with him and his crew. Over the journey, the group find themselves getting closer to Melty until one night. Naofumi and Raphtalia notice Melty's clothes in front of a sleeping Philo and wonder if Philo finally unlocked the Hannibal Lecter in her and gobbled Letty. As Philo awakens from her slumber, she reveals that Melty is sleeping inside her feathers. Both Raphtalia and Naofumi find this a bit odd until Raphtalia touches Philo's feathers and falls asleep on the spot. Once they reach Castle Town, Naofumi separates from Philo and Melty and heads to the church to buy the holy water for Raphtalia. He is met by the high priest, who sarcastically congratulates him on his sacred duel with Motoyasu. Naofumi brushes aside the fake pleasantries and demands the most powerful holy water they have. Initially, they try to trick him with a cheap knockoff, but the high priest scolds the nun and has her retrieve the genuine item. However, knowing this is all a facade, Naofumi takes the holy water and leaves the church before someone declares him a witch. Shortly after, Naofumi is chased by a brave knight, prompting him to split from Raphtalia with a plan to regroup at Philo's carriage. After evading the guard, Naofumi is ambushed by an enraged Motoyasu, who accuses him of taking another slave girl, Philo, who he clearly wants to bed. Before Naofumi can clear his name, Motoyasu charges him like a wild horse, ruining the marketplace in the process. Suddenly, the knight arrives and gently tells Motoyasu to not fight in the market when Melty announces that since she is Daddy's princess, she wants the fight to take place. Just as things are spiraling out of control, Melty arrives with her own guards and scolds both her sister, Melty, for her abuse of power and Motoyasu for his rash behavior. Philo comes shortly and Motoyasu wastes no time in buttering her up. However, Philo remains unimpressed by his Ohio Rees and transforms into Philolial form and delivers another powerful kick to Motoyasu's little junior. Later inside the weapon shop, Melty finally reveals her identity as the first in line for the throne, a position granted due to Melty's problematic personality. She explains how she was able to override her sister's decree and stop the duel. Melty also admits she had no idea Naofumi was the shield hero when they first met, but now she needs to discuss an urgent matter with him. However, after knowing she comes from the family of liars, Naofumi curtly tells Melty to piss off. Unable to understand Naofumi's hatred for her, Melty tries to talk to him, when the shield hero tells her that if she does not run back to her castle, then he would throw glitter all over her. Out of options, Melty turns to leave and remembers her mission, which was given to her by the queen. Turns out the queen wants Melty to help Naofumi, as she is against the mistreatment done to him by the royal family. Once Melty leaves, Naofumi forbids Philo from ever seeing Melty. This upsets her so much that she leaves the shop. A few minutes later, Philo returns with a group of young knights. The one who he met in the marketplace, Ake, tells Naofumi that he wishes to fight with him in the upcoming wave, as he protected the Loot Village all by himself. Hearing this, Naofumi demands a fee of 150 silvers to join his party, while Raphtalia wails in objection. Naofumi remains absolute in his stance. The young knights exit the shop with the determination to get the coins. With that settled, Naofumi learns from Edhard that he can get upgrades from the church. But of course, when Naofumi and team arrive at the church, the sisters tell them to eat cow dung, as the king has banned them from getting the upgrades. After cursing the king and his dim-witted subjects, Naofumi arrives at Pellucas's, who informs him that he can easily get upgrades in the neighboring countries. He also suggests he get a wyvern claw for Philo, which Naofumi accepts. Now, in order to test Philo's new claw, Naofumi and his squad enter a gutter where they encounter a monster. After easily defeating a monstrous crocodile in Melromark sewers, the group takes a moment to rest. With her renewed strength, Raphtalia tells Naofumi that once the waves are defeated, she would like to come with him to his world. The next day, Naofumi stumbles upon a town in the north where refugees from a neighboring country beg for food. Learning that Itsuki's involvement in their rebellion has made matters worse, Naofumi provides what aid he can. Back in Castletown, Naofumi overhears a conversation between Ren and Itsuki, who are bickering over their recent failures and how some new and upcoming adventurer is getting all the jobs. As Naofumi sniggers at that, Ren and Itsuki come to confront him. When the two Viros accuse him of stealing their jobs, Naofumi coldly reveals how he had to clean up after their mess. And while he is not a rapper, Naofumi sure as hell roasts the crap out of the two twinks. Ren accepts his mistakes, but Itsuki tells Naofumi he is a dirty liar. With only 72 hours remaining until the next wave, Naofumi and his team return to Edhard's shop, who gives them new weapons when they are greeted by Ake and his group, who now have the coins. However, to everyone's dismay, Naofumi tells Ake and the rest of the lads to buy arms with the money so they are not entirely useless. The knights smile as Philo happily cheers over making new friends. As the hour of doom approaches them, Naofumi takes out a bracelet and puts it on Raphtalia, revealing that it will increase her mana. Seeing this, Philo pouts until Naofumi places a clip on her hair, informing her that it's supposed to increase her agility. Once everything is sorted, Naofumi and his new party teleport to face the second wave. Upon arrival, they are met by many monsters, which Naofumi, of course, defeats with ease. It is then when Naofumi and his cuddle crew notice a Gilf eliminating some low-tier monsters. Raphtalia sees this and says how Grams got the dog in her. As the old lady notices Naofumi, she quickly thanks him, which leads Naofumi to remember that she is the same lady he healed. 3 whole hours pass by and Naofumi wonders why the 3 heroes have not yet taken care of the wave yet. Out of guesses, Naofumi and his team head to meet the heroes and are greeted by a pirate ship of the undead. Itsuki tells him how Motoyasu and Ren are quarreling about which wave boss to slay first, and that is why they have not been able to make any progress. Sighing, Naofumi arrives on the ship with Philo and Raphtalia and is instantly greeted by Captain Jack Sparrow. Motoyasu sees Naofumi and asks him what a useless man like him is doing up here. Pissed off, Naofumi reminds him how the show is named after him, which shuts Motoyasu up. After finishing off the small flies, Naofumi and the other heroes are greeted by the ultimate wave boss, Soul Eater. As they make an attempt to slay the monster, Naofumi realizes that if the battle continues to stretch on, then the village will become unrecoverable. This leads him to unlock the Rage Shield. However, the moment he does so, he hears a voice of the zombie dragon, who is angry upon being consumed by a chicken and a shield. The hatred of the dragon then causes both Naofumi and Philo to go berserk. While everyone else looks at Naofumi with disgust, Raphtalia tells them they are more useless than the letter G in lasagna, which is why Naofumi had to resort to such measures. In the meantime, Naofumi sees a glimpse of Raphtalia and recalls the promise of being her and Philo's protector. This causes him to regain his composure, and with renewed energy, he manages to single-handedly defeat the Soul Eater. Just then a mysterious lady arrives and mocks Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu for being extras. She also states that only Naofumi is worthy of being called a hero, and with that she reveals G is his enemy. After introducing herself as Glass, the Wicked Witch of the West declares that the true battle of the wave is about to begin. Naofumi tries to get some information on Glass through his information hub, but is puzzled when no details about her level or stats appear. Glass, who had witnessed their battle against the Soul Eaters, taunts Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu by calling them Naofumi's servants. Offended, the 3 musketeers of uselessness launch their ultimate attacks at Glass, which she easily withstands and then returns the favor twofold. Once the trio of idiots are out of the battle, Naofumi steps in and tries multiple attacks but fails to eliminate the seemingly unbeatable girl boss. At the same time, Glass praises Naofumi for having a strong defense against her own attacks. However, realizing he has no chance against Glass, and with the wave about to end, Naofumi decides to escape with his cuddle crew. After returning to the capital, Naofumi is summoned to the king's court, where Melromarc reluctantly congratulates him on his victory over the Soul Eater. However, the king quickly becomes hostile, demanding to know how Naofumi, a defensive hero, obtained such offensive power. Naofumi smugly tells the king to kneel and beg for the answer. As the king threatens him with the lives of his companions, Naofumi angrily tells Melromarc that he has seen Rito of Healer, so he best be careful. Once Naofumi leaves the court, Melty arrives, begging her father to reconcile with the shield hero. However, Malty interjects, telling Melty to stop taking Naofumi's side. This prompts the crown princess to remind Malty that they live in medieval times where punishments are known to be blood-curdling. Matli grits her teeth in anger while Malty takes her leave. Outside the castle, Naofumi decides to go shield Frieden for Philo and Raphtalia class upgrades. Eddard gifts them new equipment for their journey, which delights Raphtalia and Phil. Later, while camping, they are interrupted by Princess Melty, who pleads with Naofumi to return to the castle and reconcile with the king. Despite her formal tone, Naofumi refuses her request, insisting that he is done with keeping up with the Melromarcs. However, as Melty continues to talk, Naofumi gets a sinking feeling in his stomach. All of a sudden, a knight from Melty's group lunges to attack the princess. As Naofumi saves Melty from the sudden attack, the rest of the knights yell at him for kidnapping the princess and call him Set and Spit. After launching a mild attack, the knights retrieve and later show an altered version of the events to everyone who had the time to watch. As a result, Naofumi and his party are now barred from entering any neighboring villages and towns. Naofumi recalls how he captured the knight who tried to murder Melty, and when he interrogated him, he found a rosary from the Church of Three Heroes on the knight. Raphtalia explains that it is the symbol of the Church of the Three Heroes because, as it turns out, the most popular religion in Melromarc is worshipping the three heroes except the shield hero. In the present, Naofumi curses Melromarc, which upsets Melty, who angrily tells Naofumi that her father had nothing to do with any of this. Of course, Naofumi does not believe that one bit and tells Melty she is as stupid as she looks. Not wanting to lose any more brain cells on this blue-haired half-wit, Naofumi goes to ponder alone as if he is some twink philosopher. After imagining Sydney Swenny's huge honking honkers, Naofumi finally gets the clarity he needed. He returns to the party and tells everyone that he has decided to leave this crappy place. Melty reveals that she will return to the castle, but Naofumi states that she will just get herself murdered. With that, he tells Melty to come with him, and he will make sure she is alive and kicking. When Melty agrees, Naofumi states we ride at dawn. After a whole day of traveling, Naofumi tells everyone they will camp in the woods, while Melty and Philo walk ahead. Raphtalia asks him why he chose Sildfeld. Naofumi then reveals that he noticed how the knights are trying their level best to ensure they do not head to Sildfeld, which means there must be a reason. That night, while everyone sleeps, Melty asks Naofumi why he hates her father so much. When Naofumi reveals the full truth, Melty is left surprised. All of a sudden, they find themselves under attack. Soon enough, Naofumi learns that the three heroes are here to apprehend him. Naofumi and Melty both insist that this is all a setup, but Melty urges everyone that Naofumi is a devil who has manipulated everyone, including her younger sister. And of course, everyone believes Melty since she is a woman. A fight breaks out and both Ren and Itsuki are slightly shocked to see Melty's aggressive attacks towards her own sister. Unlocking the Rage Shield, Naofumi creates a distance between himself and the rest of them. However, before leaving, he tells Ren that he knows he is trying to get to the bottom of the truth, and then throws the rosary of the church before leaving with his party. While taking a breather, Naofumi and his group are greeted by a spy who informs him that the queen needs to speak with him. Understanding the importance of the meeting, Naofumi agrees. All of a sudden, Naofumi and his team find the entire forest covered in flames. They instantly deduce that this must be all Malty's doing. The next day, Naofumi learns all the routes to Sildfeld are sealed, which means they will have to meet the queen first. Melty explains that the Lord of the next region is an ally to the Queen and a strong supporter of demi-humans, and will gladly offer them refuge. However, he appears to be the last pro-demi-human noble still in power after the death of the Queen's right-hand man, who was the lord of the Seattle region and supported demi-humans. Raphtalia becomes sad and reveals she once lived in the Seattle region and was directly impacted by the riots that erupted after the lord's death. In the aftermath, a group of Melromarch's soldiers devastated the region, capturing the surviving demi-humans and selling them into slavery. She also was among the victims of this tragedy and will always be haunted by the Red Room of Christian Grey. Naofumi and his group are then greeted by the noble named Van, who warmly welcome them inside his mansion, and while Naofumi remains distrustful of him, the girls enjoy the luxuries Van has to offer. The next day, Naofumi finds his life in trouble once again when another noble marches with his army on Van's castle to seize the shield hero and his girls. As Naofumi and Raphtalia hide inside the closest, Melty deals with the fat noble Radier, who Raphtalia seems to know. She growls in anger, but Naofumi calms her down while Melty tells Radier she wants to speak to her father. Radier smugly tells the princess to follow him, and once they exit the mansion, Naofumi gathers his girls and prepares to save Melty before the land whale Radier eats her. That night, not only does Raphtalia fights alongside her master, but also confronts her past by striking down Radier, the man who enslaved her. Raphtalia is about to game in the fat pig when Naofumi asks her if she is comfortable being known as the slayer of the pig. Raphtalia realizes she will not be better than the man who did her wrong and decides to spare Radier, which gives him a chance to attack Raphtalia. During the fight, the destroyer of the donuts ends up falling to his death. While startled by Radier's death, Raphtalia says get wrecked new. Remembering how Radier had slaves in his dungeon, Raphtalia leads her friends inside the cell when she is hit by the memories of the past. Raphtalia remembers how she had her dear friends, Rifana and Keel, who were there for her when times were hard. While she and Rifana were taken to a different prison by Radier's scums, Keel was beaten by one of the scums in the village. From then on, Raphtalia and Rifana endured all kinds of torture until Raphtalia was sold to a slave merchant. In the present, the gang manages to free some of the slaves, and fortunately, Raphtalia comes across one of her childhood friends, Keel. As Keel gets healed by Naofumi, he tells Raphtalia how Rifana would have been happy to see her. This prompts Raphtalia to run towards Rifana's cell, but what she sees next horrifies her so much that she starts to sob loudly. As Naofumi and his entire party join Raphtalia, they see a skeleton of what used to be Rifana. Seeing her best friend rot and die alone, Raphtalia calls her useless until Naofumi pulls her out of her head and reminds Raphtalia how useful she is to him. After stepping out of the hellhole, Naofumi and the gang watch Radier trying to resurrect an old monster. Slightly amazed, Naofumi thinks about how Radier's fat body defied the rules of gravity and saved him from certain death. However, the moment Radier frees the monster, his luck runs out and he is squished like a fat fly by the dragon. In a secluded forest, a girl with white wings is seen talking to a Philolial about finding a suitable queen candidate and expresses her desire to meet her soon. Meanwhile, at Radier's estate, the recently freed dragon wreaks havoc. Philo bravely charges at the dragon, but her attacks are as useless as your attempt to lose weight. Melty then notices a pink glow on both Philo's and the dragon's stomachs, leading Naofumi to deduce that the dragon is pursuing Philo, driven by the natural hatred between dragons and Philolials. This gives Naofumi the idea to use Philo as a way to lure the beast away from the town to prevent further destruction. However, when Raphtalia feels anxious to leave behind her friend, Keel encourages her to join the fight with Naofumi. Reluctantly, Raphtalia hands over her mana-enhancing bracelet before leaving Keel in Van's protection. Naofumi and his party successfully lead the dragon out of the town, where they try to eliminate it but fail again and again. Desperate, Naofumi prepares to use the Wrath Shield, but a mysterious voice warns him against it. At the same time, Melty notices a powerful barrier of magic mist forming around them. Suddenly, a large flock of Philolials arrive, encircling the dragon in a tight formation. As Naofumi attempts to invoke the Wrath Shield once more, the voice intervenes again, forcibly stopping its transformation. From the lake emerges the massive Philolial queen, who tells the dragon to get lost or face her wrath. When the dragon remains stubborn, the Philolial queen easily eliminates the monster, shocking everyone. The queen then turns to Naofumi, expressing a desire to speak with him. Transforming into human form, she reveals herself as Futoria, the queen of all Philolials in the world. Melty recognizes her and reveals to Naofumi how she met Vittoria during a diplomatic trip in the past. Vittoria then explains that Philo has the potential to grow into a Filolio queen and expresses her desire to take the conversation to a safer location. The group is taken to the ruins of a Filolio sanctuary once protected by the heroes of the past. As they settle in, they cook and eat the dragon's meat for dinner. After the meal, Vittoria explains to Naofumi that Philo's rapid growth and unusual abilities stem from being raised by a hero, which sets her apart from other Filolios. She then expresses frustration at the current heroes in fighting, as they should be united in the battle against the waves. Vittoria also reveals that the waves are a global threat, not confined to Melromark, and that each hero is meant to protect a different country. Meanwhile, in Melromark, Ren and Itsuki infiltrate the Church of the Three Heroes underground library to find the truth about why Naofumi is being treated so harshly. However, they are unaware that Princess Malti is also present and is very displeased with their investigation. Back at the Filolio sanctuary, Vittoria continues to urge Naofumi to reconcile with the other heroes, as their unity is essential to stopping the waves. When Naofumi refuses to listen, Vittoria throws a fit and states that if they can't work together, she'll eliminate them all. The next morning, at the Filolio sanctuary, Naofumi broods over Vittoria's ultimatum from the previous day, where she warns him about eating him and the three heroes herself if they don't unite against the waves. Though the bitterness lingers, Naofumi tries to keep his intrusive thoughts limited to the Discord chat. During breakfast, Vittoria suddenly traps Melty inside a magical wind prison, using her as leverage to push Naofumi once more to reconcile with the other heroes. Vittoria explains that uniting the heroes is essential, as it honors a promise she made to the hero who raised her. Despite the pressure, Naofumi refuses and tells Vittoria that if she does not stop this, he will send her to McDonald's where she will have a happy meal. With that, Naofumi attempts to activate his Wrath Shield, but Vittoria again disrupts the transformation, forcing him to stop. She demands a duel with Philo, who must fight her one-on-one in human form to prove that Naofumi's party is strong enough to handle the waves on their own. In exchange, she promises to spare Melty and the other heroes for now. A magical barrier rises around them, sealing the combatants inside. As Philo charges in to fight, she realizes her attacks are ineffective against Vittoria's superior speed and strength. As the duel intensifies, Naofumi tries to free Melty, but he is struck by Vittoria's magic, which cuts through his shield's defense and causes him to bleed. Seeing Naofumi injured enrages Philo, and she fights with renewed determination, vowing to become stronger for the shield hero's sake. As Vittoria absorbs mana from the air, Naofumi tells Philo to study her opponent's movements carefully. These words trigger a flashback for Vittoria, as she recalls the same advice given to her by the legendary hero who once raised her. Inspired, Philo uses a new attack, Spiral Strike, mimicking a golden bird talon, which successfully breaks through Vittoria's defenses. Exhausted but resolute, Philo reaffirms her vow to protect her loved ones. In the end, Vittoria smiles, declaring Philo the winner of the duel. Vittoria then reveals that the duel was a test to determine if Philo was worthy of being her successor. With Philo's victory, she is officially named the future Filolio Queen. Vittoria gives her a beautiful crown as a symbol of her triumph, but it vanishes and transforms into a cowlick that sprouts from Philo's hair, marking her place in the succession line. After healing Naofumi's wounds, Vittoria gives him one of her own cowlicks, unlocking a new ability for his shield, the Filolio series. Before discussing matters privately with Naofumi, Vittoria makes amends for trapping Melty by giving her a ride on her giant bird form. Later that night, as everyone rests, Vittoria once again questions Naofumi about his intentions to reconcile with the other heroes. She asks if he has ever attempted to clear his name. Naofumi then admits he has never tried because he believed no one would listen to him at the time. Vittoria points out that by not attempting to clear his name, he bears some responsibility for his continued persecution. She tells Naofumi that they will return to Melromark, where he will have the opportunity to speak with one of the other heroes. However, she warns that she will not intervene unless Naofumi proves himself worthy of her help. She also reminds him that fighting the waves will be far more difficult if even one hero is missing, and how there will come a time when the heroes will have to make sacrifices. When Naofumi asks her why she is wasting her time on him, Vittoria explains that she holds him in higher regard than the other heroes, not only because he raised Philo to become the next queen, but also because she believes he has the ability to unite the heroes and lead them in the coming battles. Naofumi, realizing the importance of controlling his wrath shield, accepts Vittoria's offer of a spell to help manage the shield's dark influence. As the night grows darker, Vittoria rests her head in Naofumi's lap while the hero lovingly pets her. The next day, Vittoria transports Naofumi and his party to safety, gifting them an old wagon, much to Philo's delight. Before bidding them goodbye, Vittoria tells Naofumi that she senses the presence of another hero and urges Naofumi to reconcile. In the end, Naofumi decides to talk to the hero on the checkpoint, but to his dismay, he finds Moto Ieyasu at a checkpoint, who is blinded by rage and blames Naofumi for the deaths of Ren and Itsuki. As Naofumi defends his innocence, Moto Ieyasu purposely refuses to listen as Malty tells the spear hero how Naofumi unleashed a monster in a town. Now more vengeful than ever, Moto Ieyasu prepares to send Naofumi to the deepest pits of hell. Malty, ever the schemer, traps Naofumi and his party in a lightning cage, forcing them into a battle they don't want to fight. Realizing that Malty must have hypnotized Moto Ieyasu by showing him her ankles and armpits, Naofumi reluctantly fights the hero with all his might and even manages to defeat him. Before he can celebrate, Philo urgently tells him to increase his defenses as something powerful is coming towards them. Heeding to Philo's advice, Naofumi not only protects his party but makes sure Moto Ieyasu and his team is safe. All of a sudden, they are stricken by a powerful force which destroys the entire area. Pope Balmus claps and tells Naofumi that he really is incredible for facing and making out alive against his judgment magic. He further reveals that he wishes to cleanse the world from the fake heroes who are nothing but brats. Malty angrily tells the Pope that he will pay for this, but Balmus' confidentiality states that he is going to take over the kingdom and also admits to murdering Ren and Itsuki. For the first time, Moto Ieyasu begins to see through the lies, realizing that Naofumi is innocent of the accusations. But before they can address the revelations, the High Priest prepares for another strike, brandishing the sacred weapon. As the judgment spell begins to build, Naofumi finds himself utterly powerless. As Balmus raises his golden weapon, Naofumi and the gang are shocked to see it transform between sword, spear, and bow. Melty then states that the weapon is a replica of the 3 legendary weapons, which was said to have disappeared, but apparently that was also a lie crafted by the church. Pissed off, Naofumi asks Melty why they summoned him and the other heroes when they had such a weapon at disposal. On that note, Melty reveals that a single strike of the cardinal weapon takes too much mana, which is why they need the heroes and their separate weapons to help them out. Not one to sit and watch, Ieyasu tries to launch an attack on Balmus, but fails. This causes him to give out a huge speech on how he is a hero who will save everyone. Naofumi blankly looks at Moto Ieyasu and thinks that he must have been the type of guy who would go around calling himself alpha male. When Moto Ieyasu strikes again and fails, Naofumi notes that a lot of believers are creating pools of mana for the Pope to use. As Naofumi worries about getting rid of the Pope, he suddenly receives help from Ren and Itsuki, who manage to disrupt Balmus's mana supply. While the Pope gets distracted in regrouping, Ren and Itsuki reveal they were almost murdered but survived. With that, they reveal how they went to investigate the church, which made the Pope so mad that he hired a hitman from the deep web. Luckily, they received help from the Queen and her spy who helped them regroup. When the 3 heroes propose an alliance to defeat the Pope, Naofumi refuses by reminding them how they mistreated him, left him to clean up their messes, and thought of him as the weak link. He also tells Ren, Itsuki, and Moto Ieyasu how they are no different than the Pope who abuses and lies as he pleases. However, remembering the promise he made to Vittoria, Naofumi tells the heroes he will join forces with them till the Pope is defeated. Once Balmus is defeated, he will walk on his path once again. The heroes smile, accepting Naofumi's terms while Balmus unleashes a grand spell called Cathedral. In another part of the country, the Queen wears her armor, ready to deal with Pope Balmus and his fanatics. She silently prays for the safety of Naofumi and Melty as she gathers her troops. Back inside the cathedral, Naofumi realizes that all their attacks are useless against the Pope, since he is practically untouchable. From outside, the bishop tells Balmus that his followers will die if they give more mana to him. The Pope, so steadfast in his lies, tells the bishop that dying for God is a worthy cause, which prompts the bishop to urge the followers to lay out their lives for Balmus and his cause. As the bishop continues to flow with mana, Naofumi decides to unleash the Rage Shield, The dragon once again seduces Naofumi to use his hatred, but Naofumi tells the dragon that he will not walk down that path. That is until the dragon reveals that all this anger has been his and shows Naofumi bits of his life, where he was mistreated by everyone. In the end, Naofumi realizes journaling ain't shit and turns into a 90s husband, ready to burn down everything in his path. However, he is suddenly reminded of the happy memories he made with Raphtalia, Philo, and Melty, who promised to eat away all his negative feelings. As Naofumi comes out of his state of anger, he asks the girls if they are going to give him a big mouth hug, one by one, to help him deal with all this pain and sorrow. Melty smiles and reminds Naofumi they are in the middle of the battle. Snapping back, Naofumi asks the heroes to help, which comes as a pleasant surprise to them. The heroes unite, and together they hit Balmus with multiple attacks, but even then he remains unscathed. Suddenly, Queen Morelia arrives and freezes Balmus in one spot. Naofumi seizes this chance and unlocks a new feature of the Rage Shield called the Blood Sacrifice. To everyone's horror, Naofumi finds himself covered in his own blood, which seeps into the ground, and then becomes a gigantic shield which gobbles the Pope up. The cathedral disappears, but Naofumi falls to the ground. Morelia quickly comes to Naofumi's aid, stating that she will not let him perish. Naofumi and his party find themselves standing at an unfamiliar, desolate shoreline when a tattered flag catches Naofumi's attention. The symbol bears a striking resemblance to the royal emblem of Melromark. Shocked, Naofumi wakes up in a panic and finds his cuddle crew sleeping next to him. Raphtalia then explains that while Queen Morelia's powerful healing magic has helped him, the curse from blood sacrifice is something even the queen cannot fully heal, as the spell causes devastating damage to both the caster and the target, and only time will allow his body to recover. Just then, Queen Morelia enters the room, formally introducing herself to Naofumi. Naofumi, curious and wary, questions why Melromark harbors such hatred for the shield hero. The queen shares the truth. During the second catastrophe wave, she had been away at an international forum to discuss how nations would defend against future waves. They had agreed that each country should summon one cardinal hero. While she entrusted the Lord of Sieto with maintaining order in her absence, tragedy struck when the Lord was slain during the wave. King Melromark then went YOLO and broke protocol by summoning all 4 heroes at once. This action angered the other nations, which is why she was away and unable to keep Melromark and Malty on leash. However, this does not answer Naofumi's question as to why Melromark hates him so much. The queen then reveals that Melromark is probably jealous of his luscious black locks and wants him to die. Malty joined in, and the church took advantage of their hatred and got away with their wrongdoings. Naofumi bitterly wonders if his life would have been different had he been summoned by another nation. The queen acknowledges this, mentioning that places like Sildfeld, where demi-humans worship the shield hero, would have treated him with far more respect. Despite the queen's offer of gold and the promise to end his public disgrace, Naofumi remains unmoved. He decides to leave Melromark, intending to fight the waves wherever they appear until he can return to his world. Later, in a private conversation, Queen Morelia requests that Naofumi attend a trial the next day to witness the punishment of Malty and Melromark. That night, Naofumi is haunted by a nightmare where he sees Malty and the king being executed by guillotine. The next day, Naofumi's party, along with the other 3 heroes and their companions, are summoned to witness the trial of the former king and first princess. As Malty and Melromark are led into the throne room in chains, the queen states she will put a slave crest on Malty to get the full truth out of her. As the trial proceeds, Malty's lies, conspiring with the Pope, the attempt on Malty's life, and the false accusation against Naofumi are all exposed. Throughout the whole time, Motoyasu is left shocked, realizing he got trolled by a 3 out of 10. With the charges proven, the queen sentences them both to death for high treason. The citizens of Melromark, watching from the courtyard, support the verdict, demanding justice for the suffering they've endured. However, as the execution is about to be carried out, Naofumi steps forward and demands it be stopped. He states that he cannot be tormented by Malty and the king's ugly face every night, and would rather have wet dreams about Lola Bunny. So instead of an execution, Naofumi tells the queen to strip the princess and the king of their titles. Queen Morelia quickly accepts Naofumi's decision, as she does not want to lose her boy toy. After the trial, the queen declares that the 3 heroes' church will be abolished, and the original 4 heroes' church, which honors the shield hero, will be reinstated as the official religion of Melromark. Naofumi, however, declines any further rewards and plans to continue fighting the waves across the world, ensuring his role as the shield hero is not confined to Melromarc alone. As Naofumi and his gang turn to leave, Melty promises to make the country a better place. Outside the gate, Naofumi, Raphtalia, and Philo watch the people and knights bow in respect. Melty tearfully thanks Naofumi for his mercy and for bringing peace back to her kingdom. Naofumi smiles, feeling a sense of true heroism and respect as he restates his vow to face the waves wherever they come. The following day, Naofumi is woken up by Raphtalia, who shows him how the crest of the church has changed. Now, all four of the heroes are acknowledged and revered. Naofumi smiles and tells Raphtalia that they can finally get their class upgrades and head inside, where Aki reveals that he's in charge of the Dragon Hourglass. After a while, Naofumi and his girls arrive at the palace to inform the queen that they couldn't get the upgrades they wanted. Morelia replies back, revealing how that sometimes that can happen, and informs Naofumi that she's throwing a party and wants all the four heroes present. Later on, Naofumi apologizes to Raphtalia about being unable to get her the upgrade she wanted, revealing how he wants to be sure she and Philo will be fine once he returns to his world. Before Raphtalia can answer, Naofumi is called to have a meeting with the queen, while Raphtalia and Philo join Melty at the banquet. There, Melty notices Malty being a sussy beka. All of a sudden, a drunk knight tells Raphtalia that she is nothing but a Walmart version of a cat girl. This pisses her off so much that she gets ready to duel with the man. Meanwhile, at the meeting, Morelia notices the tense environment and asks the heroes if their periods cinched up or something because they look mad as hell. Morelia then tries to ease the tension by mentioning the upcoming activation of the Kal Mira Archipelago, an event that grants faster EXP bonuses, which piques the hero's interest. At that moment, Melty rushes in to inform Morelia of Malty's attempted poisoning. Motoyasu, as always, refuses to believe that Malty could be guilty, but the truth is undeniable, proven by her still active Slade crest. With that, the queen emphasizes the importance of cooperation, warning that if they don't unite by the time of the next catastrophe wave, they'll all die. Despite this, the heroes remain stubborn. Ren accuses Naofumi of cheating and asks him how he managed to make his shield look so cool. Meanwhile, the banquet hall is a chaotic mess, with people fighting left and right, except for Philo, who continues to eat without a care in the world. Back in the meeting, the heroes argue about the features of their legendary weapons, each thinking theirs is superior. Motoyasu explains how heroes can copy weapons, Ren talks about crafting, and Itsuki mentions teleportation, all of which Naofumi has been unaware of and wonders if he's really the protagonist. Later that night, as Philo sleeps beside Melty, Naofumi and Raphtalia reflect on the day's failures. Naofumi can't stop thinking about the weapon copying system, which the other heroes had mentioned. As he focuses on it, his shield unexpectedly unlocks the copy skill, surprising him. At sunrise, just before the other heroes depart for Kal Mira, Queen Morelia informs Naofumi that a ship will leave for the archipelago within the next 24 hours. This time, Melty chooses to stay behind to fulfill her royal duties. On the way to the ship, Naofumi's party stops at Eddard's weapon shop, where Naofumi eagerly copies every shield he finds, much to Eddard's annoyance. During their journey, Raphtalia asks to visit her old, destroyed village, where her friends and family, including Rafana, are buried. After the visit, Raphtalia tells Naofumi that she can't imagine a world without him, which leads him to reveal how he doesn't intend to go anywhere, as he can't trust the other heroes to be useful. After boarding the ship for Kal Mira Archipelago, Naofumi is greeted by two other travelers who introduce themselves as Berg and the Rees. When it's time for Naofumi to introduce himself, he reveals he is the shield hero, which causes the two travelers to laugh their butts off. In response, Berg states that if he is the shield hero, then he is Goku. After cackling like a hyena, Berg tells Naofumi he is nothing like the shield hero, who is notorious for being a scum. Naofumi just sighs until Berg asks him to partner up with him for the level up. Before he can answer, Naofumi is called by the ship captain, who wants his crew to see the legendary heroes. On his way to the deck, Naofumi thinks about how he will tell the heroes that he managed to unlock the weapon copying skill, but when he meets them, Naofumi has a change of mind. Turns out the heroes have fallen seasick, and since Naofumi is up and kicking, Ren once again berates him for having a cooler weapon at his disposal. Before he can argue, Naofumi is greeted by the Rees, who asks Naofumi to make some jewelry for her and hands him a crystal. Naofumi accepts the job since the Reese promises to let his dragon plunder her cave. After landing in Kalmyra, Naofumi's gang ditches Berg and Izagirl. They quickly start their process of leveling up until Itsuki, Motoyasu, and Ren arrive on the start. Almost instantly, they start to butt heads about who should hunt in the area. Feeling like a kid whose parents have boxing matches every day, Naofumi decides to leave. That night, Naofumi admits to Raphtalia that he still feels the effects of the blood sacrifice when Berg and the Reese invite them to get drunk. As Naofumi accepts the invitation, he realizes how fun it is to let go and enjoy once in a while. The next day, Naofumi gives the Reese the bracelet he had crafted using the jewel she gave him. Delighted, the Reese pays up front and the entire group head to level up from there. Upon arriving at the location, Naofumi and the rest of them are surrounded by monsters. The Reese unleashes the power of the ruby, which not only burns the monsters but also purifies Naofumi's body from the side effects of the blood sacrifice. After splitting the drop items, Naofumi, having enjoyed a lot, asks Berg and the Reese to join him and his group, but shockingly, he is rejected by Berg. Once they part ways, Naofumi's team heads to the beach where they explore a mysterious underwater building which holds a massive dragon hourglass, which informs Naofumi that the next wave is in 2 days. After learning about the impending wave, Naofumi quickly teleports to the castle to alert the queen. At once, Marilia arranges an army that will help the heroes fight. Naofumi speculates that the wave will hit them at sea, which leads to the queen to arrange multiple ships for them. In the present, Raphtalia worries about the people of Kalmyra. Marilia then informs her that Earl Heppenberg has already finished evacuating the islanders and she doesn't need to worry further. As always, the heroes refuse to fight the wave together due to their inflated egos. Naofumi sees Berg and the Reese on another ship and learns they're also going to be fighting the wave. He tells Melty how those guys are more trustworthy than the so-called heroes. Once the wave hits, Naofumi and the heroes find themselves facing a gigantic fish. As always, Ren, Motoyasu, and Itsuki are rendered useless while Naofumi and his group manage to defeat the wave boss with the help of Berg and the Reese. However, after the fight, Berg and the Reese finally believe that Naofumi is a shield hero and reveal their true agenda is to eliminate the heroes. Berg and the Reese further explain that they're heroes from another world and their world is also at the brink of destruction. That's why they must eliminate the heroes and save their own world. As the fight ensues, Naofumi realizes that both Berg and the Reese are truly strong as they manage to do him harm even with his shield activated. Just then, Glass arrives and joins Berg and the Reese, which makes Naofumi realize that Glass is an ally of the two heroes from another world. With the arrival of Glass, Naofumi grows worried and realizes it would be impossible to defeat all of them at once. So instead, he tells Raphtalia, Philo, and Melty to take care of Berg and the Reese. Wanting Naofumi all to herself, Glass agrees and the duel begins. During the battle, Naofumi tries multiple shields and realizes that Glass cannot defend herself against his Soul Eater shield. Naofumi tells Glass that if she doesn't stop attacking him, his shield will terminate her. Glass, however, states that as long as she draws breath, she will keep coming for him as she must protect the world she loves. With that, Glass tells Naofumi that if he really wishes to protect his world, then he must do what's necessary. While Naofumi contemplates whether he wants to be a hero or not, Raphtalia steps in, announcing how she wants to protect her world for the sake of her friends. This leads Naofumi to discard every ethical dilemma he had. He tells Glass that he will return to his world, but before leaving, he's going to create a safe place for his team. Just when he's about to unleash blood sacrifice, the Queen throws tanks of alcohol on Glass, which makes her so tipsy that she's unable to continue. Berg arrives and tells Glass that they don't have time and must retreat to their world. As the heroes of other worlds take their exit, Naofumi grapples with the dilemma of murdering other heroes for the next couple of days. He reaches the conclusion that first he must recruit members to join his party. Luckily, Itsuki casts aside a girl named Lisha over a petty reason. This leads Naofumi to recruit her as the newest member. The following day, the Queen gives Naofumi his reward for defeating the Pope by making him the new Lord of Sieto region. Delighted to be back home, Raphtalia asks Naofumi why he chose this reward, and he reveals that he wants to have a base where he can train his army to fight the waves. Raphtalia gets sentimental and begs Naofumi to never leave her side. Understanding her emotions, Naofumi promises to stay with her and his beloved band of misfits. Do you think Naofumi truly loves being a hero? Comment, "I love chickens," or "Get married to Malty." And if you like anime recaps, then watch this video here.